We're trying now to interview. We have Congressman Michael Cloud on the phone. We're going to talk with him about a couple of things. The reason I want to talk to him in part was he is a member of Congress representing a district that actually is on the border. His district in southern Texas touches the Mexican border. And so he's been down there recently with some other contingency of Congress members, Jim Jordan and others. And I want to talk to him about his visit to the border, as well as a town hall he held, or just a roundtable, enforcement roundtable in Victoria, Texas, talking to the average Joe. What does it matter? Why do we care? Why are you bothered by the fact that we have a totally insecure border? So I believe we have Congressman Cloud online.
Hello.
Hello,
Good
sir.
to be with you today.
I'm so glad you could call in. This is just great. Thank you. And I know you're busy. You're in Congress. You had votes today. Thank you for taking just a few minutes out of your day to talk to me. So to start with, you did a tour of the border very recently, and I think you were with Congressman Jim Jordan and maybe others. And I'm sure in part you went just to kind of say you went to see it, but was your impression that the border is, just overall impressions of the border in the sense of security? Are Americans right to be concerned about border security?
We are definitely right to be concerned, and that was my, I think, third, fourth maybe, official trip since being elected about a year ago. And, the first thing to realize is that the cartels are doing no one any favor at all. When I got here, you had Democrats blaming Republicans, Republicans blaming Democrats, and I'd get up and say, the villain here is the cartels. They have no regard for human life. They have evil intent at every aspect, whether it's drugs, trafficking, even have their hand in legitimate government and enterprise. They are doing so much harm to our communities and to the communities up through Central and South America. And so this is something I'm thinking everybody can get agreement on. And really, just a few weeks ago, we went back with the Oversight Committee staff, including Ranking Member Jim Jordan, and really wanted to get a follow-up on the work that's been done through the efforts to fund the humanitarian side of things, and also to get an update on the continuing security situation that's going on.
Thank you for your service, and thank you for making that visit. I know your district actually touches the district you represent in Congress from Texas touches the southern border with Mexico, and you recently held a border security and law enforcement roundtable in Victoria. I love that you had that, because I love the idea that you're calling your own constituents and people involved in the impact of what an insecure border causes. Can you just share with our listeners, what are some of the ways in which the insecure border actually impacts day-to-day life in your district?
Well, we get really, really close to the border, but the big deal is that there's two main highways that come from Laredo and McAllen that intersect and go straight up through Texas, through our district, on the way to Houston. They have what's called the fatal funnel, where a lot of the trafficking, the drug smuggling, is going through those two highways up through our district, affecting every community along the way before it's dispersed throughout the country. And so whether you're talking to landowners who are warned to stay off their own property, who can't feel like they can walk their own property without being armed, because of what they might run into, they'll tell you that they find dead bodies on their property all the time, to the stash houses that are throughout the districts. And I've seen the video of people stripped down and beaten naked, and that video sent back to their families as they're held for ransom. I've visited the facilities where young ladies have made the journey up, and they'll tell you 40% of them admit to being abused along the journey. And so the thought is that it's probably a conservative number, and it's tragic that we've allowed this to metastasize into such a dire situation. And certainly we can do better than this, and have the need and right, both in the security and humanitarian side of things, to secure our border, to stop this magnet that's allowing these people to be taken advantage of.
Congressman Cloud, I love you use the word metastasize, because people kind of, it's a creepy word, and people they know it's a bad thing, but it's a really good descriptor overall of the consequence of failing to secure the border and failing to provide not just an enforceable border, but a system that we all agree is a law and everyone backs and everyone enforces. The problems you describe metastasize. Great word. I want to switch over to another topic. I'm so happy to have you on the phone. I know you recently met with some individuals who were part of this movement to save the persecuted Christians. And Matt, the wonderful producer, has a picture of you. I think I took it from Facebook, a picture of you with this group. And these are people who've been horrifically persecuted, Christians around the world. The Christian persecution is the single largest group that is victims of persecution around the world. So you have this meeting, and first of all, I'd love to have you just share a little bit about it, and then have you, if you could, tell us what in the world can we do about it? What can America do about saving the persecuted Christians around the world?
Sure. The first thing is really awareness. And yeah, I can't see the picture over the radio. Over the
That's a good one.
But we met with a group from Nigeria who came. One of the mother whose daughter was being held by Boko Haram because they had raided a school, took I think 120 young ladies, and ended up not returning her daughter. They ended up returning some of the others, but she was kept because she refused to renounce her faith in Christ. And so she's still there being held. And then you looked at these Fulani raiders who've been raiding Christian neighborhoods and communities throughout the nation. And the word is that there was a payment from the Nigerian government to them as ransom money, which concerns us when you consider that our tax dollars are going to help provide for foreign aid that's going to Nigeria. And they're, I believe, among the top 10 countries that we provide foreign aid to, and yet they're turning around and using some funds to provide for ransom money against Christian communities that are being persecuted. And so, I think this would shock most people, regardless of what faith you come from, to find out that your tax dollars are being used by proxy in such a purpose. And that was followed up by a meeting with an ambassador from another country who said, we appreciate the foreign aid, but where I can tell you where it's going to in our country isn't going to the kind of things you would think it's going to. It's going to these organizations who are working to undermine the values our nation has held dear for a long time. And they're a conservative Christian nation with a huge percentage of faith. I think 95% of their people, and so that's not really what the purposes are supposed to be used for. And I think just this week, India, I should say, is looking at legislation that has banning conversion in their country and banning any NGO or any type of foreign assistance. People who have converted in the last. If you've converted somebody or if you've expressed your faith in any sort of way, you would not be able to do aid in their country. And again, they're in the, I think, top 25% of the nations who receive foreign aid. So this is something that as an office we're really digging into, but it's something that what we're finding so far isn't real comforting.
Congressman Cloud, are you saying that India is contemplating legislation that would not permit, if NGOs of any kind were attempting to convert people from Islam to Christianity, that they would be blocked, the NGOs would be blocked? Is that what you're saying?
They've implemented non-conversion rules, and part of that is that, to the best of our understanding and what we've read so far, I've seen the legislation that they passed, and it's basically if you're a foreign country that's coming in and you have an NGO that's coming in to help provide aid to that country for some very legitimate reasons, if you as a member of that team had ever participated in what they would consider free exercise of your faith or conversion,
evangelism.
If you spoke in a church or talked to your friend or something like that, you would be prohibited from participating in that kind of activity. And I can tell you, I've been over there, and I've sat in a room and interviewed pastor after pastor after pastor who's been beaten for their faith, and wives being beaten, pregnant women kicked, and children left abandoned as their parents are taken to jail. It's
for converting
tragic.
to Christianity. For converting to Christianity, right?
Well, in those cases, oftentimes it was just meeting with a small group inside their own home. And then have 50 people show up at their house on motorcycle gangs and with sticks and beat them blind in some cases. And so, I understand in developing countries some of that stuff is tragic, but when you have a government that's protecting that kind of activity and then we're sending aid to them, that's the part that, as a legislator, that concerns me.
Absolutely. So actually, that is my next and last question was, what can Congress do? So you were aware of this, and I don't have numbers. I really apologize for our listeners. I've recounted them before in the show, but the level of persecution of Christians around the world is simply staggering. It's unknown. This is why Save the Persecuted Christians exists, to raise awareness. But do you have yet in Congress any idea what you can do to try to fight against this problem?
Yeah, the first thing we're doing right now is really digging into, because a lot of the data on it is hidden. They're not presenting. The Nigerian government or the Indian government isn't going to present us, hey, this is how much money is going toward persecuting. You know what I mean? So finding the information is difficult, but we're working to dig in to get that kind of information and make it public. But the thing that anybody can do is to call their congressman and make sure that this is on their radar, and to ask questions, because the State Department for a while now, for a good bit of time, has gone unchecked in these kind of efforts. And so you have people in entrenched bureaucratic positions who've kind of turned a blind eye to this sort of thing happening, and haven't really pushed the issue. And so what people can do is inform their congressmen to help hold the State Department accountable in these kind of issues, as we begin to look at all the other geopolitical issues that are being at play right now.
Congressman Michael Cloud, representing Texas's district, is it 27th district, I think, right?
27th district, yeah.
Okay, and a border community down there on the border, keep monitoring what's happening, listening to his constituents about the impact of border crossers, illegal border crossing, and the impact on their communities, their lives. I love that you're doing all of that, and I love that you're learning, we're all learning more about persecution of Christians around the world, recognizing America has a role to play, at the very least, re-examining how much money we send to countries who repress Christians, and maybe other ways we can help too. So, Congressman Cloud, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you. Okay, so that's Congressman Michael Cloud. This guy, I mean, he's just a salt of the earth, regular guy. Never thought he was going to, he did not groom himself from childhood to become a politician, to be a member of Congress. He really is just one of your heart and soul, salt of the earth guys who represents one district in Texas in Congress and trying to shine the light on the border issues, as well as persecution of Christians, which occurs in just staggering numbers.